Hello,
Hello.
Margot. I feel like we're besties, even though we've never met.
I know. I feel like it's kind of silly that it took a pandemic to get us together here.
That has been the theme of this season's podcast interviews. It's individuals who I haven't really gotten a chance to sit down with in person, and now because of the pandemic, I get to chat on the phone. How are you?
I'm good, and I feel like it's a strange thing to be good these days, but we've sort of settled into a new normal, and I'm taking it one day at a time. How about you?
Yeah, I'm good. I just caught myself right before our interview. Um, I went and I was brushing my teeth, and then I realized, like, why am I even brushing my teeth right now? This is just a virtual interview. This is a whole new world for me in my casual business matters. And I also just got back from chasing my brother's dog down. He chased after a deer, and everybody was out looking for him, and I was the lucky
Oh,
one who actually found him.
oh, that's awesome. Good job. That's very satisfying.
Yeah. Have you done any rescuing during the pandemic? Any interesting moments?
No, nothing that exciting. I My life is just really crazy in general in that I have three children, and two of them are normally in elementary school, kindergarten, and third grade. And so now they're home. And then I also have a child who's under two. So it's just been a lot. I would say that the biggest challenge is finding a quiet spot in my home to do work. That's the hardest part these days.
So you're flexing your super mom powers right now.
Yes.
How do you feel about doing a podcast?
I love podcasts. Really.
Hey, Unlock listeners. This episode's brought to you by Point Central, the leader in business-grade smart property solutions designed for rental properties. Point Central's technology helps you increase property safety, reduce operational costs, and improve guest satisfaction. Head over to pointcentral.com/VRMB to learn more. And Rental Guardian. With over 1 million property owners, thousands of property managers, hundreds of software partners and counting, Rental Guardian is arguably the most complete and trusted travel and damage protection platform in the industry. You can learn more at rentalguardian.com. And AirDNA, the vacation rental industry's leading provider of data and analytics. By tracking the daily performance of over 10 million listings on Airbnb and Vrbo, AirDNA delivers powerful insights to help hosts, managers, and investors thrive in their vacation rental markets. You can head over to airdna.co to learn more. We heard a guy on the street say, "Next, we're meeting with the CEO." And my 6-year-old son turns to me and says, "That guy's going to meet with you, Mom." And me, smiling, said, "Honey, there are a lot of other CEOs out there." And he said, "Are they all moms like you?" Those, of course, were not my words. It was a tweet that was shared by Margot from Hostfully, today's podcast interview. Hello, friends.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, I am just fantastic. I'm the new Miami Matt. I went for about a 1.5 mile swim this morning in the bay, and I even saw a manatee, which at the beginning was terrifying, looked like a monster. And then I realized it was a playful animal going about his or her business as well. So I really had a fantastic morning, and now I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys. How are you?
Good. You sound quite energized.
I am. Manatees and coffee.
How many cups of coffee, Matt?
I've had 3 cups of coffee this morning. My furniture has still not arrived, nor has any of my kitchen equipment. So I am drinking Starbucks cold brew. I think it's concentrate.
Sounds like it is.
I'm extremely energized. Let's just say.
That's good. It's so good to hear you with your energy back at the time of recording this interview, you mentioned you were feeling a little down, a little depressed, some COVID blues. So it's really good to hear you're feeling better.
The COVID blues is a good way of putting it. And I think a lot of people have gone through some period of that. And you're right. When we did this interview with Margot, I was not feeling so hopeful. And it was nice to speak with somebody who did have kind of a forward thinking viewpoint about her. Stu, what were your thoughts about this episode?
I was pretty impressed with Margot. I mean, she's juggling the 3 kids and everything with the quarantine and the pandemic, but she's found ways for her business to grow, to focus on projects that they didn't have time for when they were slammed, to really figure out what's important, to kind of streamline their decision-making process. So I was excited to hear about that. I was also excited to hear about the behind the scenes from a VR Keystone awarded software company. What is that, the VR Keystone Awards? I'm not sure everyone knows.
Nice plug for the Keystone Awards. It's a first of its kind event that we hosted. And I shouldn't even say event. It was more of a project in which myself and fellow Inner Circle member Terry White, who is obsessed with this software landscape, decided to put together a tool that would recommend property management softwares to vacation rental professionals based on their needs, what factors of a property management software were important to them, combined with the strengths of any given property management software, which we learned through hundreds of hours of demos. And when we released the Keystone Awards, there was a software that was kind of standing above the rest, and it was Hostfully. And we actually gave them an award because we thought it deserved some recognition as the best all-around software. And that was a really neat thing to do. And Hostfully has been growing ever since. And I think you're right. It was neat to actually go behind the scenes and speak with Margot about how this business operates and what she is looking to achieve as a vacation rental entrepreneur moving forward. So with that teaser, would you guys mind if we just hit play? Margot Schmorak is the CEO and co-founder of Hostfully, which is a property management software company that was actually awarded Best All-Around Vacation Rental Software in VRMB's Keystone Awards 2020. Prior to Hostfully, Margot led the marketing initiatives at Apple for the first iPhone developer program, which I think is so cool. Today, we're going to talk about the future of technology in hospitality. We're going to talk about her maturity model as a way to guest our vacation rental efficiency. And we are going to talk about my favorite subject, the power of limited edition. Margot Schmorak, welcome to Unlock. Did I say your name properly?
You got it. Thank you so much for having me.
I was practicing your name a couple times before the podcast, and I was really crossing my fingers that I got it right. That sounds like a nice Jewish girl.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a big mouthful, actually. When I first met my husband, I thought the last name was terrible. I'm not sure how I feel about it now, although I really owned it. My last name before this was Lee, Lee. So simple and easy. And now I'm with Schmorak, but it's definitely it's unusual. So I have the Twitter handle Schmorak. You know, what more can I ask for?
That is when you know you are unique, is when you scored the single word Twitter name. And Judaism is only a new part of your life. Apparently, there's two whole other sides to you. There's the Minnesotan, if I'm not mistaken, and a Chinese component. I want one instance in your life when each of these things comes out.
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, for the record, I'm actually 100% Jewish. My mom is Jewish and my dad is Chinese. So I grew up in a Jewish family, had a bat mitzvah, went to Jewish camp growing up. Let's see, I'm also from Minnesota. So the combination is good with guilt, likes to talk about money, focus on education, but do it in a really nice way. That's the combo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I
No,
love it. You should put that
it's
on your
fun.
business card.
Exactly. And then I married an Israeli, so then I have the other Jewish part going on pretty strong too.
You are just covering the globe. You mentioned that you've got some children in the picture. Describe for our listeners what your current daily stay-at-home routine looks like.
Well, so I have 3 kids, ages 2, 5, and 9. His birthday was earlier this week. And I get up in the morning, and my husband and I do half and half in the morning. I do kind of like a little homeschool session with my kindergartner because I don't really love screens, so he's not on the computer too much. My 3rd grader's kind of self-directed, which is amazing. And then the 2-year-old, we have an au pair. And so I do have a lot of coverage during the day, and she lives with us. We are so lucky to have her during this time. So I basically go through the day juggling being an IT expert with my kids, looking at their homework, and then working on Hostfully and working with the team. And working with the Hostfully team has just been such a delight during these times. We're a remote team already. And so we've just kind of leaned into our remoteness. And it's been really fun.
Yeah, so actually, let's just jump right into that. One of my first questions was going to be how a tech company with lots of employees, constantly working to make the product better for lots of managers. How are you guys handling this crazy moment in time?
I have been so excited to see the focus that we've had. At first it's just really scary, right? There was a lot of like figuring out, are you okay? Is your family okay? Do you need any help just living your life, right? Like your emotional well-being, your physical well-being. Are you in a safe place in the world? There was a bunch of questions around that in the first few weeks, kind of in the last part of March. But then after that, the team has been so focused. It's been quieter on the customer support side because we just have a lot less volume going through our platform right now, which is to be expected. But it's given us an opportunity to do some of the stuff that we've been wanting to think about for a while, right? That's just done in a quieter place. And so actually, like, we've been able to move really far ahead on a bunch of different features, marketing initiatives, just rethinking our strategy. And one thing I just want to end on is that I feel like the coronavirus has brought out just everyone's true self, right? There's nowhere to hide. There's nothing to hide behind. And making decisions seems to be easier now than it was before because it's so important for us to make the right ones. And so I just feel like it's been a real blessing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
How are you doing these days?
I'm good.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, of course. You're welcome to just turn the table here. I've brushed my teeth today. I mentioned that I got a dog out of the river. And other than that, I think I've gone through a little period of confusion, depression, concern, kind of all those emotions that stages that a lot of people have gone through to some degree. But I'm starting to come out of it and starting to get my juju back and starting to look at what are the opportunities that will be presented, forced because of this crisis. And a lot like you, my priorities, I've forced myself to get a little bit clearer on those too. And that's something I'd actually like to talk to you about in a couple of minutes. But this world of tech entrepreneurship and startups is not necessarily new to you. I only recently read that you used to work for Apple. What was the biggest thing you learned working for Apple? I'm always curious to know.
Oh, the biggest thing I learned working at Apple. At Apple, the dedication to the highest quality, like the very highest quality, is just unwavering. But I would argue that I actually didn't learn that there, but it was reinforced there. My first job out of college was working at an architecture firm for an architect who came from the Harvard School of Design, and he would pick my stuff apart for the smallest things. Like if I made a design or a photo that was literally 1 pixel off, he would see it. And so I learned to be really exacting with how I delivered anything. And at Apple, you have to hold yourself to those really high standards. I mean, the entire company is just held to such a high standard internally, and that's what you see, in the products as well. And so I definitely think that's the big message I got from working at Apple. The other thing was that at Apple, trade secrets is the way that that company runs. And so it's such a strange organization. You don't, it's not just that the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. It's just like, it's like a centipede. You don't know what any of the other legs are doing. And that's the way that company ran. And for me, one thing I learned is that I hated it. I actually really didn't like the lack of collaboration, the lack of transparency. I felt like it was missing opportunities for people to do good work and for people to help and grow. And so that's why I left, actually. So that was a big learning for me too.
I really loved that first part that you gave, because that is something for me, that premium, that feeling of premium about Apple is something that I've always admired as a sheer consumer. So it was neat to hear you say that that's sort of baked into the DNA from scratch. And I also think that the perfectionist aspect is something that a lot of vacation rental professionals
Yes.
have, for better or worse. We are all control freaks, and everything needs to be perfectly set up. And like if somebody, nudged a pillow from the staging position, we must go back and fix it. You transitioned from Apple into this vacation rental sphere. What was your how did you do the crash course in vacation rental stuff? What's the best way to learn that in your short period of time?
Oh, that's a great question.
This is just going to be full of great questions. I promise you that. I've been spending all day thinking about it.
Yeah, I know. And I hate that response, but let me think about it. Well, so first of all, I actually didn't go straight from Apple to vacation rentals. I worked for a while at a startup called Coveroo, which also made a platform, and then I wore a bunch of hats there. I learned how to run operations in a team and work in a startup. And then I also was at a company called Service Source, which is a B2B enterprise software company. It's a publicly traded company that sells recurring revenue solutions to large companies like VMware and Dell. So I've been in multiple environments servicing different types of customers. And I think because I've had the variety of experience servicing different types of customers, I can understand the real challenge of a vacation rental manager, which is that vacation rental managers have two customers that have different needs. They have owners and then they have guests. And oh my gosh, like managing one customer is hard enough, but vacation rental managers have to manage two. And so the way I see my role and Hostfully's role is just helping these people do a good job. I mean, they have the fundamentals. They know what needs to be done. They actually don't need us to tell them anything. They just need us to help make it easier for them to accomplish what they already know that they need to do. And we need to be compassionate about their situation, which is that they're servicing two different customers. And there are very few industries that are like that. So I think like really getting close to that plight is actually the number one way to learn. The other way is that I found my co-founder, David, who is an Airbnb superhost and manages a few properties, and my other co-founder, Stefan, who also manages properties. So between the three of us, they are living and breathing the challenges in vacation rental management. And I listen a lot. And I also try to do my best listening to everybody else who I meet in the industry too.
And quick shout out to both of those strapping gentlemen. Maybe that's why I felt like I kind of already knew you, because I've loved watching their respective journeys over the years, and they always talk about you. I first was curious to know, have you come across another industry that has that kind of dual client base?
No, not. I mean, I don't have one off the top of my head. Do you?
No, but the way you were describing it, it was so on point. It made me realize that this is kind of an extremely unusual challenge that our colleagues are working with. I'm always curious to ask, how do you describe what we now do as a profession to people who are not in our niche? Because typically when I try to describe what I do, someone says, "Oh, Airbnb." And then I say kind of, and then I go into the more specific description of what VRMB is about and what the inner circle is about. But how do you describe the genre of professional vacation rental management to people outside of the industry?
Yeah, I always start from the consumer experience, because most people have stayed in a vacation rental home with their family and they think of it in a good way.
Right.
And I always pick a location near them. So if they're from the East Coast, I say, Cape Cod or the Jersey Shore. And if they're from near the Bay Area, I say Tahoe. I'm like, well, think about the last time you stayed in Tahoe. You probably rented a vacation home, right? And they're like, oh yeah, I went with my friends or my family, right? And then I say, well, there was a management company that was actually managing your property, and they probably manage anywhere between 50 and 100 properties in that area. And if you think about the activity that they need to do that, it's really complex, right? They have to manage cleaners, they have to make sure all the bookings are coming in, they have to manage all the guests. It's a really operationally intensive business. And then sometimes I say it's kind of like a restaurant, depending on who I'm talking to, just because I want to get people into the mindset of like a ton of operational throughput. That's this industry. And I like starting there compared to a hotel, because I think that the challenges in vacation rentals around managing a diverse set of inventory are so different than hotels. And I think that it's kind of lost if you start from the hotel perspective. So
Totally.
I usually say restaurants, which I know it's not the same, but I think people appreciate, a lot of people have been a waiter or waitress, like they appreciate how hard it is. I'm trying to
Mhm.
get them to empathize with the challenges of vacation rental management usually. What do you do?
Yeah, it's tricky. I usually I usually just end up saying, well, yeah, like Airbnbs, but my people actually run real businesses and they treat it extremely professionally. That is not to hate on people who only use Airbnb. I know some of them very well, and I know I'm going to get emails from them. Let's move on to the next question. And this current landscape challenges every kind of business. You get a special kind of insight into how managers are dealing with it because you are the pillar of a lot of these businesses. Over across the board, how are you observing managers are faring? Who are the ones that are doing okay versus the ones that are struggling?
It's a wide range and it's unexpected. We have customers who have just been hit so hard they don't even know where to look. They don't see any sort of future in long-term rentals. We've heard some rumblings around that maybe long-term rentals outside of urban areas are faring well, and some of our property managers are not seeing that. Others are doing okay, like they have government contracts, or they have healthcare workers staying in their rentals, or they have pivoted to long-term rentals. I mean, in general, it's definitely a downward trend. And we published a paper that showed that cancellation rates are up like 500% compared to last year. So I'm not painting it out to be just okay for anybody, but there is a really big range of experiences that we're seeing.
And in terms of actual features, like the actual elements of the business, whether it's a location, a kind of location, or a business structure, or age or size, is there any features that you're noticing seem to be especially prepared for this kind of thing, or at least ready to rebound?
Yeah. So the larger companies that are more sophisticated with the way that they run their business and also the way that they use technology, they don't seem as concerned. And then the ones who are smaller, just kind of getting started, maybe they've never used a PMS before and they're just starting with us, or maybe they're just using our digital guidebooks. They are definitely the hardest hit. So I'm definitely seeing, like, it's almost like if there was a spectrum of sophistication, in terms of business, the way people are running their business, the ones at the top end are just, they seem to be less affected by this, and the ones at the bottom end are really struggling. Yeah.
It's almost like there's a maturity model. And I want to talk about your maturity model in a minute, because I think it's brilliant. But I'm kind of curious, looking back on your life, we take from difficult experiences, we learn from them, we try to improve. Is there anything that you have taken from adversity, looking backwards, that you find yourself kind of channeling as a supermom and a tech CEO in this time?
Yes. So I graduated college in 2001, and then the economy tanked. And then I graduated business school in 2007, and then the economy tanked. And I remember sort of laughing, like, after the second one, where I thought, well, if I can get through this and be relatively successful, I think I'm doing okay. So I'm just not afraid. I guess it's taught me I feel really high level of resilience and confidence, and I just feel like, hey, everybody's going to do their best, and my best is good. It's fine. It's enough. And I don't worry about that. I wanted to mention, though, that, like, you said earlier on in the podcast, going through like the range of emotions, depression and frustration and sort of like lack of hope, right? And we went through that at the end of March, and I just didn't want to gloss over it because I totally did that too. But I never felt like I wasn't going to get out of it. I felt like I was going through the stages of grief. There was a great article written on this, and so like I think it's we all are going through this and these stages of grief, and it actually almost everyone will go through every single stage. It just depends on the time frame that it takes you to get through it. But I think that the kind of like what is the quality that I take with me to help me get through challenging times? It's the trust that I've been there before. And I mean, hey, we're Jewish. Like, most of my relatives were killed in some way, either in the Holocaust or in the Japanese occupation of China on my Chinese side. Like, I come from survivors and immigrants. So like, I don't really get scared off about hardly anything, which is good.
And I did notice when you said challenge, I noticed that there was also some Minnesota there reaching out. A quick note about adversity. I found that it can be useful in uncertain times to take a big step back and look at how far we've actually come. As entrepreneurs, we tend to gloss over all these achievements because our head is down and we're aiming for the next big goal. But one really easy way to get your bearings, and this is something I recommend you do at least once a year, is to do a deep dive into the data. This is where AirDNA comes in. You can subscribe to any city or neighborhood and get access to interactive charts, dynamic pricing calendars, market comparison tools, information on your competition, and they even have these new future-looking metrics which show you exactly how things are looking 6 months out. AirDNA is our go-to resource for understanding and navigating short-term rental markets around the world. It's a quick and easy way to benchmark your great progress in otherwise uncertain times. Find out more at airdna.co. Now let's get back to the show. The ability to survive, the ability to solve problems, the ability to do, that characterizes all of our colleagues in our industry, at least for me. They are really, truly the essence of entrepreneurs, even though they may not recognize it or have trained in it. You came up with a concept that I think is really special. It's called the maturity model. And I'd like to talk a little bit about it, especially now, because I think that everybody in our industry right now is taking a hard reset. We've put together actually a resource on VRMB, reset.vrmb.com, which is really addressing the harsh reality that there is a period of stopping the bleeding and surviving and keeping our heads above water. Then there's a period of beginning to plan for a relaunch. And then when guests actually start staying again, almost all of us are starting from some degree of level 1 or level 0 even. Some people more than others. But your maturity model, I think, becomes really helpful as a piece of intellectual property as people begin to grow. And just summarize it at a high level before we jump into some of the actual components, because I think it can be really helpful for folks.
Yeah. So a maturity model it's kind of a map of how your business is operating by different functions of the business. So the way we've just divided it up is distribution, marketing and SEO, turnover management, pricing, messaging, and then guest experience, owner management, business operations, accounting, and reporting. And we basically said, like, in general, people want to know how they're doing in these different areas of their business. But instead of writing an opinionated piece where we say, and this is what Hostfully does, or this is what the best thing is to do in this part of your business, we wanted to like lay out the entire map. So the purpose of this is for property managers to be able to identify where they sit in this map. And it's not supposed to be like a quality judgment. It's just staying like let's just do some kind of self-awareness, right? And I actually love these maps for personality stuff too. I am a bigger believer in like understanding how you operate as an individual too, but this is for your company. So the point of this is for property managers to look at this and see, this is where I am for this part of my business, and if I wanted to move up to the next level, what would it look like? Or if I don't care, then I guess go to the lower level, but that usually doesn't happen. But it's just a way of people sort of non-judgmentally looking at their company and understanding where they sit and being able to make informed decisions about where they want to focus next. And now is such a great time to be able to do this because things are quiet. So in addition to taking a big step back and looking at your overall business, this is kind of looking at your business in a more granular way and helping you identify paths forward if you decide to take them.
Yeah, I love the map. In fact, that was the metaphor that I was thinking as well, of being able, when you pick up a map, if you're lost, you first identify where you currently are on the map, and then you can identify where you want to go. Some people do that inside of like the mall on the mall map. But it takes a gigantic amount of stress off your shoulders when you realize that you actually do fall on the map somewhere.
Yes.
And then, of course, the steps that are necessary to get to where you want to go. One of your big themes in it has to do with automation. And one of my big questions for you, because automation is certainly been a pattern that's growing over the years and is most likely going to be accelerated by this pandemic. How do we automate as much as possible without losing our business's soul?
Yes, I am concerned about this question too, but I think that it has to do with the quality of the solutions versus that trade-off. So in my mind, automation is there to support the personalization that you want to do with your customers, you know, that a property manager wants to do. It's not like the goal is the goal of automation shouldn't be, we want to remove headcount, right? Which I think is kind of like the natural place to go. But really what automated
headcount, like employees?
Yeah, right. Like people. I mean, that's when someone thinks of automation, they think of a factory and they think of a robot doing something instead of a person, right? That's the analogy that comes to mind. But we all know that in vacation rental management, the magic of the guest experience comes with the personalization that the property manager can provide to that guest. You know, whether it's just reaching the right guest with the right property, with the right price, with the right amenities, whatever it is, right? Those are the things that make or break the experience for the guest and that help to drive better business for the vacation rental manager. So when you think about automation in all of these areas of the business, the goal is not to remove the personalization. It's just to support it. And one of the things that we noticed really early on with Hostfully was with my co-founder, David, who loves being a host with his guests. Oh my gosh, he can give you the spiel over and over again. He does not get bored. It's amazing.
Oh, he has.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, he's just really, really good at it. But what he realized is that if he could quote unquote automate a part of his guest experience by creating a guidebook, what Hostfully does, then he can focus on the higher value conversations with his guests. Like instead of explaining where the grocery store is and the local coffee shop is, he can say like, oh, why are you here? Oh, really? You're here because you love art? Oh, there's this new art opening that I just heard about last week, right? And the automation allowed him to get to that personalized conversation. So there's that piece of it, which is that automation can free up time to do more with personalization. But then there's the other piece, which is that, I mean, in the future, automation could actually deliver a personalized experience, which we haven't seen in travel. And I'm excited about this because I think in vacation rentals is actually like a great starting point for true personalization when it comes to travel. And many, many companies have tried to take a crack at this and have failed. And that's really the genesis.
Like which one?
Well, I mean, like you could even go back to companies like Soch or even companies like Expedia, right? Like they try to put in these like quote unquote personalized offers after you book a flight or something, right? Like, I mean, every company has.
Oh yeah, but I never like them. They're always bad.
They always suck. Yeah. Because it's not actually personalized.
Yeah.
So, but vacation rental managers uniquely know their customers. They don't even know their customers in general. They know which kind of customers are staying at which kind of rental. it's really amazing, right?
Right.
Like, you know exactly the kind of customer that you want at one rental that you have. And compared to hotels, vacation rentals have a huge advantage to actually get to a personalized experience there. So I don't think we're close to being able to execute on that as an industry or with the technology we have, but I'm excited because I think that might be the place where this is cracked. And I think it could be like transformative with the way people travel. Like, it's, I mean, everyone's done this, right? Like, you arrive at a location and you're like, why didn't they know that I stayed here before, or that I've never been to this, city
Yeah.
before, or that my cell phone's not going to work, right? I mean, these are
Yeah.
basic things that we should have solved by now. But anyway, yeah.
And I always like to use the Four Seasons as my North
Mhm.
Star in terms of scaled hospitality. All hotels look at the Four Seasons as a brilliant kind of personalization and curation. But what I always like to remind our colleagues about is that what makes the Four Seasons great is that you can be sitting by the side of the pool and the pool guy actually knows your name and your favorite drink because that's stored in a system. That is like an incredible luxury that people associate with high dollar stays. That's something that we can do the easier, the smaller we are. Not suggesting you be the pool boy, that would be a little creepy, but being personalized with each of these guests is a luxury that people have come to, they're willing to pay for. So I like what you're saying about identifying the things which should be automated, menial tasks, things you don't like. Other than actually interacting, like in the case of David and his suggestions, are there any other human aspects that you have found to be like cannot be replaced by technology or shouldn't?
I think some of the like troubleshooting stuff, I mean, it just shouldn't be replaced. Like, that, like, where, I mean, you can give people like the base case of information, right? Like, this is how you get there. Here's the instructions. Here's where the key is. Here's how you get in. But then if they have some unusual situation, being able to manage that, I don't see automation really doing anything there. I also feel like, how do I say this? Like, it takes a lot of investment to automate a brand. And I think that that's going to be like the final thing that I don't really see how that's going to be achieved for a long time. And where this is where you started with the question, right? Which is like, how do companies do this without losing their soul? And that soul is the brand, in my opinion, which is like, what is the connection to place, the connection to the special things about that location or those rentals or that company. And like, it's hard to you can't really automate that. So, and every company is different. Some companies are focused on social impact in their business. Some other companies are focused on the luxury experience or some things, associated with their place that they're in. And that is going to be really hard to like automate. I don't know how that happens. I mean, unless you have spent a ton of money doing it, which I don't think is going to happen either.
And so that actually perfectly leads into my next question, which has to do with growth.
Mhm.
But before I get into that, I do want to give Mr. Stuart Hooper, the producer of this podcast, a quick shout out because that last question I basically stole from Stuart. He came up with the first ever thesis question of the Vacation Rental Show Season 2 about Bali. Stuart, do you remember what your question that you posed was?
It was, how does a place that's been so popular with tourists for decades successfully preserve its soul?
Yeah. So anyway, credit where credit is due. Moving into growth, which is something that we are taught to obsess over in business classes.
Yes.
In your part of the country, growth at all costs and scaling is the stuff that headlines are made of.
Mm-hmm.
Your maturity model is a linear trajectory of growth, in a sense, in terms of how many moving parts and tools and efficiencies are built into a business. Do you ever get the feeling that because our industry is so human, so personal, because hospitality does require this element of curation, or what I like to call limited edition, do you ever get the feeling that there might be limit to a vacation rental management company's growth?
Absolutely. And actually, we purposefully did not put things on here like around profitability, because I don't think that there's necessarily a correlation with the levels in the maturity model and profits or profitability, right? Like I actually, I just want to clarify that like the intent of this model is not to have people necessarily move up. It's only that if they've decided they want to move up, what should they consider focusing on? And it's if you've decided to move up is that's like really important. I don't want to lose that, because we've seen companies that just don't want to change the way they're doing part of their business. Maybe they want to have a really high manual touch on messaging, or maybe they don't want to automate everything around, I don't know, like turnover management, because they just want to have a super high level of quality when it comes to inspection, right? And that's okay. I actually, I know I'm in Silicon Valley or whatever, but I actually don't believe in growth at all costs, and I think it's shown, because I'm not like the best fundraiser for my company. I mean, I'm decent, but I'm kind of like more about the long term. And when I say long term, I'm like, how do you build a company that really delivers on value and can do it successfully and consistently over time? And for Hostfully, definitely that includes growth. But like for vacation rental companies, management companies, I don't think that necessarily is a mandate. I think it's a balance with the rest of your business. So yeah.
And I also think that at this moment in this reset period, when everybody really is challenged to plot out what they want this new business to look like several years from now, now is the chance to define what that growth looks like. I just got off the phone with somebody who realized during this quarantine period how much he was missing his kids growing up. And he wanted to officially allocate more time away from the office and at home with his family. That could be a kind of growth for somebody moving forward. There could also be, where your properties are located. Maybe you're looking to enter a new destination that you've always dreamed about spending some time in. Have you noticed that the lifestyle side of our business, that our kind of clients emphasize more than just the finance?
Yes. I also think that I know that there are actually ways that you can kind of use a different approach to your advantage. So like I've been working with Lynn Thurston and Helena Sedaris and Carol, oh my gosh, Sharoff? That's how you pronounce her last name?
Yeah, Carol Lynn Sharoff, yeah.
Sharoff. On some of the social impact data from the VRMA that we gathered. And one thing we've discovered is that the companies that are there, some companies actually say up front, like our priority is not just on making money. Our priority is going to be on also being good community members. And they tell their owners this. And the owners, they thought that owners would be kind of resistant to that, because we think of owners kind of as investors, right? And it's like owners' main thing is, how much money did you make me last quarter? And how much are you going to make me next quarter, right? Because you're managing my property for me. But what they discovered is that owners were really excited about some of these like totally non-financial initiatives that were going on that actually caused them to lose money. But it ended up improving owner retention in general for properties. So I think that there's an appetite all over the industry for a more balanced perspective on growth versus lifestyle. And I hate saying that they're versus each other, because I think they can work together. But I think it's like, it's just not so black and white, and we all just need to find our own spot. I'll just tell you one other anecdote, which is that like, before I had my first kid, I was at the startup, and I actually wasn't sure that I wanted to continue to work, because I knew that I would love being a mom, and I do love being a mom. I love being a mom with my kids. But I discovered after I had my first kid that I did really want to go back to work, and that's just a decision that I made personally. And I think everyone out there has their own perspective on what they need to do and what they want to do with their own life, and it's totally individual. And I really like believe that. And I believe it so much that I was in the other camp, right? Even before I had kids. And then I just learned something new about myself, which is that I did want to work later. And I think that like there's this I wish stories like that got told more often, because I feel like if somebody looked at me now, they'd be like, oh, well, she's the CEO of this startup, the software company. And like, she's clearly totally been focused on her career the whole time. But the truth is I actually wasn't sure. And that's okay. And I wish that those stories were out there a little bit more. So I wanted to share that.
And I love it. And I think a lot of people, they may have started their vacation rental business 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and the very same business in their hands right now, but their priorities in life have changed, or something has happened to them that they want a new route, or they'd like to make some adjustments. And that's really healthy too. I like to think that this forced reset gives people the excuse to make that change, and not to be just kind of stuck in this way of doing things that you maybe weren't not as passionate as you used to be. Here's a controversial idea. Over the years, a lot of us lose enthusiasm about our business. I know for me at least, ideas lose luster. Topics over time get dull. And it's not like there's any magic fix or secret trick to automatically get enamored again. But I will share something of a hack that I use, and that's to invest in a cool new tool, something easy and powerful to kickstart the excitement again. Point Central is the leader in business-grade smart property solutions designed for vacation rental managers. Their technology increases your safety, reduces your operational costs, and it improves guest satisfaction. Things like connected door locks, so you're not manually handing over keys. You can control air conditioning units and heat remotely. You can avoid costly maintenance projects with real-time HVAC and water leak alerts. For me, Point Central is the kind of game-changer tool that allows managers to look at their businesses in a whole new way. And all you need to do, at least to consider the possibility, is to just do a demo at pointcentral.com/VRMB. If you're feeling low energy, try reinvigorating your business with a tool that changes the game. Another way to get excited about your vacation rental business: protect the bookings that you have earned. Protect the guests that are staying in your homes. Rental Guardian delivers best-in-class travel protection, damage protection, and liability protection for over 600 vacation rental managers around the world. They've also recently launched Master Cancel, which I talk about way too much. It enables property managers to offer flexible terms and conditions to guests, but also protect the hard-earned revenue and the owners that you represent. Visit rentalguardian.com to learn more. You'll find that protecting some of these variables gives you assurance to double down on what you do best. Let's get back to the show. My last question about this maturity model, because there are sort of 5 levels about it, has to do with margins. Our industry is notoriously bad with our margins. They're slim. And in this pandemic, we're feeling that, not unlike restaurants who are having a really hard time piecing together some steps out of this. Have you noticed any ways that managers are enhancing their profit margins, either with properties or with travelers? So they're not necessarily hiring more staff or taking more bookings, but the inquiries and properties in their lap are making more money?
Well, I definitely have heard of the transition to longer term stays, which you could argue is an increase in margin because it's less marketing cost, right? So like you're going to have, you can kind of position to every single guest who stays with you. If you decide to extend, we'll give you a discount, but at the end of the day, the vacation rental manager ends up paying a better margin than they would having to go out and find a new guest for that same property, right? In terms of additional ways that property managers can enhance their margins, I mean, we've launched a few tools, and I've heard of people using them, but not en masse. I just want to be honest, but they can use them. So I would encourage you to, if you're thinking about it. We launched a few tools that allow you to upsell additional services through your guidebook associated with the property. So if you have guests that are staying in a property, you can actually merchandise like additional tours and activities or additional services like grocery delivery or a mid-stay cleaning or a late checkout. You can merchandise that in the software itself, and you can make additional revenue off of that. And we do have customers who are doing that, not a ton right now, but it's an opportunity. And so we're excited to bring this to market. It's something that we know managers are really passionate about, and we wanted to enable that. So I'm hoping that it becomes more widespread, because I think it's an opportunity to kind of lean into what you have already, right? As opposed to trying to do more.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I also recently got a article from our mutual friend, Andy McNulty, of TouchStay, but also his primary background before that was as the CFO of Gucci America. He was a finance guy. And I asked him what was a big margin play that he saw managers making in this period. And he said that individuals who were reassessing the amount of profit per property were able to see that some properties were much more profitable with the exact same dollar amount of booking than others, and identifying the ones that were performing worst, maybe removing them from the fleet and looking for ones that can take its place. I thought that was another good tip of something to do in the downtime.
I think Andy's right on in that if you have the flexibility to make cuts in your business like that, do it decisively and early on. A wait and see strategy is not very good. And just for our team internally at Hostfully, we did that right away. We finalized all of our budget cuts before the end of March. And we went into April with a really conservative outlook for how things were going to go. And it's brought a lot of calm, and it's removed a lot of anxiety from our company. So if you have the flexibility to do something like what Andy's saying, which is like look at your properties on a per property basis, analyze the profit margins, or even look at other parts of your business that you can segment out into pieces and figure out what's not performing and kill those things, like do it, but do it quickly, because it like dragging out is really stressful for everybody. So
yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
It's also, I've noticed for difficult decisions, this pandemic almost acts as a useful crutch or excuse. Yes. I remember someone once told me I was having trouble making a big life decision, and someone said, "Matt, you need a manufactured crisis." I was like, "What the heck is that?" He said, "You need some kind of crisis in your life that forces you to choose the thing that is in your heart." I was like, okay, I like that. And we came up with something. I don't remember what it was. And I made the decision that my heart knew, but I had been putting off for plenty of time. This is a real crisis. And people can use this. They can lean on this as their excuse for having that difficult conversation, for pulling the trigger on that difficult decision. Now is an okay time. I think everybody is going through craziness. Moving into something that we are both very passionate about, and that is property management software. Hostfully was the recipient of our Keystone Award last year. Is this year? This year, 2020. Was it? Wait a minute.
No, it's actually 2019. I wanted to be 2020, but it's 2019.
I have lost all sense of time in this pandemic vortex. What is one thing we've pretty much pronounced to the world that Hostfully is a fantastic piece of software. For those who didn't follow it up, check out our Keystone Awards pages in short. Built a tool that would recommend property management softwares based on your priorities, recognizing that all different owners and managers have different priorities. Having ranked the features of over 20 property management softwares into a matrix, we then began matching your needs with the software that was the best fit. Hostfully came out on top, but I want the dirt. What is something that very few users know about Hostfully?
Oh, very few users know about Hostfully.
Yeah.
How do I answer this question? I mean, this is a hard question, Matt. I'm like, what's my angle here? No, I think very few users really understand our roadmap. And we have a few customers who are doing really cool things with our API. And they're really innovating. We have one customer who's using our API along with like Zapier, whatever you call it, and Typeform and several other tools to add more personalization to his business. That we have another who is using it to kind of like manage a portfolio of properties and be able to analyze them for future revenues as an investment opportunity for investors.
And an API, for those who don't know what it is just, how do you describe that?
It's kind of like if your software is an encyclopedia, an API is the letters on the outside of the books, right? That tell you like, okay, if you want to know like what your new lead data is coming in, you need to look in this book. And it's basically like a connection to the outside world. And the way it's maintained, though, it's not actually, an API doesn't actually like go directly to the heart of the software. It sort of has its own layer on top. And so maintaining it is actually kind of tricky. That's why it requires extra development. And our API gives people a reasonable amount of control over the property management platform. And we have a few customers that are just like doing like hacking it in a good way. Like they're doing tricks and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. That's got to be fun to watch.
It's so fun. And they come to us and they're like, hey, like, we noticed that you only gave us endpoints, like connection points to this and this and this. Do you think we could try to add this one on? Or do you think that if we took this other piece of data and connected it with one of those connection points, like, could we do this with it? And so they're really pushing us on how that works. And it's really exciting.
Is that reminiscent of your days with the iPhone developers at all?
Not really, because the iPhone developer launch was... Okay. It's a total mess. I probably could say this now without getting in trouble, but I mean, our website crashed the day that it launched. And at Apple, it's really different, actually. The Hostfully API is engineered to be as democratic as possible. So anyone who, buys a certain level of our product has access to the API and they can use it however they want. At Apple, it's the opposite. It's like, we're going to narrow the functionality of what you get down to exactly what we know you need, which is this one thing.
So it kind of limits the free range creativity in that sense.
Totally. And like Apple at that time was launching an SDK every few months. And actually it was my job to like babysit that. It's a software development kit. It was my job to babysit that as it kind of went around the company and then exited the company to developers. And it was so opinionated, the software development kit. It basically kind of told developers, like, this is what you should build. Go build it exactly the way we're telling you to do it. And we even had a team of people at Apple who told people, we need an app that helps you with, tracking your workouts. And we need an app that helps you with whatever, other things, right? It was like Apple is telling developers what to do. The Hostfully API is totally the opposite. It's just like, hey, we're giving you access to all this data and ways to work with our software, but you decide for yourself how you want to make it work. And I like that.
And you had mentioned that's kind of like a big step in your bigger plan.
Yeah, that's a big step moving forward for us. So we are, a part of our roadmap is to evolve our API to make it even more powerful, and so that property managers can control their own data and use other tools outside of Hostfully in more sophisticated ways than they can today. And I think that's something that only a handful of users know about where we're headed with it.
Cool. Nice answer, my friend. Your PR team is just there giving you the golf clap right now.
Thank you.
That was a nice way of bringing it back home. I think it's pretty clear to everybody who's begun using a property management software that it is essential moving forward. It is one of those core pillars of technology, of automation, in the sense that we were talking about it earlier, that you have to be leveraging as a vacation rental manager in this new era. If you're still trying to do it manually, it's really beginning to weaken you. But in addition to property management software, which we kind of see as an engine of sorts. Are there other tech pieces of the puzzle that people need to be aware of? Just broad genres, don't need any kind of names necessarily, but if someone who's entering now, what do they need to know about?
Yeah, so I would definitely tell them about dynamic pricing as a category. I think that the work that dynamic pricing companies have done to optimize pricing and also provide greater flexibility in the way that property managers can price their units, definitely a category I would look into. Another one I would look into is like task automation, which includes turnover management and inspections, quality assurance, kind of checklist management for turnovers, and also I guess you can include maintenance in there too. That's a category that I think companies really can't live without that. Like it's just going to be an important category moving forward. Another one has.
And can I interrupt you very briefly? I asked you not to say names, but I think we should totally say some names just for folks who are looking to get familiar with these, because otherwise people are going to be Googling task automation. They're going to be overwhelmed. In the first bucket, dynamic pricing, what are some companies to be aware of?
Price Labs, Beyond Pricing, Wheelhouse.
Perfect. In task automation,
Breezeway, Properly, VR Scheduler.
Beautiful.
Those are 3 examples.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and then there are many others out there, so I don't mean to exclude anybody.
Of course.
And then the third category, let's see. Is really I can't leave guest management tools out of there, right? And Hostfully actually has one of these, as well as TouchStay, Andy McNulty's company. But ways for companies to reach their customers more easily with a really high quality presentation. It's kind of like a post bookings personalized website for your property. That's like the easiest way to describe it to property managers, where the guest can access information without calling you or working with a chatbot or something like that.
Easy to browse, can access it without internet Wi-Fi. Andy was actually kind enough to volunteer their content management services for our advocacy project. And I just got a chance to play around with it. And it really is quite a joy to flip through. And I think I never realized that was indeed a part of the tech stack.
Yeah.
So these are kind of all pieces that people need. Do you ever get the feeling that this is a little overwhelming for folks? Like, should there be an all-in-one thing, or is this forever destined to be multiple pieces that are plugged into a puzzle?
Well, I can tell you from my perspective that I think it will be very difficult for any one company to do all of these very well. They all have different areas of focus. And at Hostfully, we feel this acutely. And I've just discussed this. Like we believe that our mission is to be a really great engine, like the core engine where you store your data for your properties and your customers. And you can view that data, you can view incoming bookings, leads data in there. But we also want to be a platform that connects with all these other companies. We are. I mean, we do connect with all of these others via API. So the chance that we will ever be able to do dynamic pricing, for example, as well as the dynamic pricing companies, it's just not there. And it has to do with business focus and ability to execute on a product, and I think maybe I'm being too pessimistic about that, but I know that I'm being realistic because we haven't seen it done very well by anyone yet, and there are companies that have raised lots of money and or have been around for a long time, and they're not doing all those things very well. So I just think it has to do with the fact that the way that each of those solutions needs to focus is so disparate that it makes it hard for any one company to be able to do all of them well. And I think you could look at Homoi, Verbo, whatever you want to call them, right? Like they basically grew through acquisition. I mean, they acquired a guest experience guidebook company. They acquired a PMS, right? They've acquired all these different tools. They probably acquired a dynamic pricing company to make MarketWatch or whatever that tool was called. But they are not able to execute very well in all of this. And then they also have this other problem, which is that they're also a channel. So they kind of have an intrinsic flaw to that strategy. But I think it's really hard to execute on a bunch of different really disparate products. I just don't believe that it's very successful.
Yeah, and I also think that it kind of stinks that you've got to be roughly fluent, understand approximately what each of these technology buckets are and what the thing does, and that you should be using it. But it also has a benefit, and that is that there is no one company controlling everything. You can plug
right.
out and plug in a piece of software if you're not happy with it. So that's on the upside. More broadly in tech, and this is my penultimate question. Shout out to my mother, Barbara Landau, for the use of that word. What other tech trends that have been kind of evolving over the years that are going to be accelerated because of this pandemic? You have your head in that game. What other broader, beyond just what we do, what other tech trends have you got your eye on that most people, when they hear, they're like, huh, never thought about that?
Yeah. I think accessibility. So one thing that the pandemic has made clear to everyone is exactly how much computer and internet access people have to their communities, whether it's kids accessing laptops and educational programs for their schools, or just like someone who has a visual disability needing to work from home suddenly, using computers where, I don't know, maybe they can't see the person they're talking to and they need to, right? So like I think that accessibility with tech is going to be an area that is going to be really brought to shown a light on with the pandemic, and it's actually going to help everybody, because I think it's going to bring forward a lot of issues that we haven't been seeing before, because you have rich educated people who have access to technology, and then you have a lot of people who aren't rich and educated who don't have as good access to technology, but in order for the economy to function well, they need it. And so there will be solutions that come to market that help improve accessibility for people. That's one. um, I I think that there's been so much noise about Zoom and remote work and strategies for that, and will people end up going back to working in offices again? I don't know. I don't know if there's like a lot of innovation beyond just like better tools for video chat. That's just not very exciting to me. But it's sure. I guess I'd bet on that one too. I don't know.
You're really enthusiastic about that one.
Yeah, I don't like that one too much. I do think that upside for vacation rental companies is that I think domestic travel, non-airline focused travel, is going to do really well. And I think that when things open up, and we don't know how long that's going to be, and maybe it will be different for different parts of the country, and also maybe there will be multiple waves of this thing. We also don't know that. I think that people have a lot of pent up demand, and I think that they will be staying in vacation rentals. So I think vacation rentals is going to be a sector that's going to bounce back faster than everyone else. So back to your original question, like how's technology going to evolve? I think that companies that are we've seen this, actually companies are signing up for us right now, which is like, whoa, like buying a new product in the time of pandemic is pretty remarkable. So I think companies are looking for ways to run their business better, and they're taking advantage of the optionality you described, right? Which is that there are a lot of options out there for companies to look at, and we're excited that they're looking at Hostfully, and we're excited about bringing them on as customers to help us innovate. But like, I think in general, the industry is going to be pushed forward through this more than it has been in the past.
And you've perfectly segued into my last question. What do you think is going to be the hardest adjustment for our manager colleagues to make in this post-COVID world?
First of all, I think there's going to be a lot of anxiety for a long time amongst everyone. Like, I don't know if you've noticed, but like people are on edge. And like, I'll give you a few examples. I was on a hike with my kids, and we were looking at a bird. We'd stopped in the path looking at a bird, and this guy came by and just like, there were a bunch of other people standing there too, and just yelled at everybody. And it was like so uncharacteristic, like
What did he say?
He was just like, I can't even walk through here. You guys are all standing. Like, where am I supposed to walk? And we were like, it's okay. And I'm there with my little kids, and he starts swearing at everybody. And I was like, oh, dude, like, chill out. And I think like there will be this kind of edginess that property managers, unfortunately, are going to have to deal with from guests, because the first time someone goes somewhere else besides their home, they're probably going to be anxious and
totally
they're going to have to deal with the brunt of it. That sucks for property managers. Just get a lot of wine or whatever you need to get through the day.
Or to give to your guests as an apology. My mother, when she travels, my mom has this little alter ego, which is her like super stressed out traveler mode. When she's like asking a million questions. We call it Sherry O'Terry mode because she reminds us of that character Sherry O'Terry played on Saturday Night Live. She's like, oh, okay, where do I go? What do I do? But she is curable. Sherry O'Terry syndrome is curable by wine as well.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's a good tip.
I think that's going to be the hardest thing. And also I think there will be some weird requests that have to do with people's anxiety around cleaning or around, maybe time after the last rental was completed before the next one rental happens. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. I just wonder if there's going to be a little bit of like anxiety fallout from this very traumatic event. I think that's going to be the hardest part. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
And predictability too, of course. But
predictability, is that what you said?
Yeah, like being able to predict, like if there are multiple waves of this thing, it's going to be hard for property managers to manage through that too.
So deep breaths. Call up your fellow vacation rental professionals, vent with them. Feel free to take a swig from that bottle of wine a little bit earlier than you normally do. Margot, this has been an absolutely wonderful conversation, and I was not expecting anything less. I want to thank you for your time. Have a wonderful weekend.
You too. So nice chatting with you, Matt. I look forward to a time when we can talk in person.
I hope you enjoyed this discussion as much as I did having it. The episode was produced by Tammy Rowe and Stuart Hooper of Mango Fish Studios. Our intro song is The Moon of Pajang by Instant Party. And if you feel inspired, please consider sharing to social media with your big takeaway. We love takeaways. They make us feel great. Lastly, if you want to receive updates, you can do so at vrmb.com/mmm. And if you want to join our virtual community of vacation rental professionals, become a member of VRMB's Inner Circle today. Until next time.